Have you ever felt like your cat is watching you with an intensity that goes beyond mere curiosity? Or perhaps you've had the eerie sensation that your cat sees something you can't, something invisible, mysterious, maybe even otherworldly. Carl Jung, one of the most enigmatic minds of the 20th century, once warned about a hidden detail in cats, something that few have truly grasped, even today. What Jung had to say about these animals could radically change not only the way you see them, but also the way you understand the invisible forces shaping your psyche and the vast, often misunderstood realm of the collective unconscious. And yes, what you're about to discover may leave you deeply surprised. I invite you to stay with me until the very end, because I'm going to reveal 3 hidden symbols that, according to Jung, suggest that a cat is far more than a simple pet. Instead, it may be a living manifestation of something profoundly spiritual and psychological in your life. The story begins with one of Jung's young patients, who came to him with a disturbing confession. For several weeks, he had been dreaming every single night of a black cat that stared at him from a corner of his room. The cat never moved. It didn't attack or speak. It simply gazed at him night after night, as if it knew something the young man himself could not comprehend. Most people might dismiss such a dream as a strange coincidence or a meaningless product of imagination. But Jung did no such thing. Instead, he fell silent, thoughtful, and then replied with a sentence the young man would never forget. Animals in dreams, especially cats, are living symbols. They represent what we have repressed. They embody our shadow. To Jung, nothing in the unconscious was meaningless. Every image, every creature that surfaced in our dreams held a message, a purpose. And when a symbol, as powerful as the cat appeared, it was not by chance. It was the unconscious trying to speak, trying to warn, to illuminate something buried beneath layers of reason, trauma, or denied emotion. In Jungian analytical psychology, this is known as the shadow, the darker aspect of our personality that we deny, avoid, or simply refuse to confront. According to Jung, cats, whether in dreams or in real life, often emerge as messengers of this shadow. And here's where the story takes an even more curious turn. After that therapy session, not only did the patient stop dreaming about the cat, but he began to notice real cats appearing all around him, in the street, on rooftops, in his yard, outside his window. Jung explained that this was no coincidence. When the unconscious isn't acknowledged internally, it begins to express itself externally. And the cat, with its timeless symbolism of mystery, stealth, independence, and its innate connection to the unseen, becomes one of the most powerful mediums through which the unconscious communicates. From that case onward, Jung began to develop an even deeper vision of the cat's symbolism in human life. He came to believe that cats weren't merely domestic animals. They were archetypal representations of the unconscious, a kind of silent presence that, like dreams, confronted us with what we refuse to see. Perhaps if a cat has ever stared at you without any apparent reason, what you were truly experiencing wasn't just its gaze, but your own, reflected back at you through one of the oldest and most silent mirrors of all, your shadow. To Carl Jung, cats were never simply decorative creatures or household companions. In his profoundly symbolic view of the world, they were living manifestations of ancient archetypes, timeless figures that dwell in the deepest layers of the collective unconscious. From the rituals of ancient civilizations to the dreams of his modern patients, the cat appeared again and again, not just as an animal, but as a loaded symbol, a silent messenger echoing through centuries. Jung understood that archetypes, these primordial images we all share as a species, manifest themselves in universal symbols, and among them, the cat held a particularly enigmatic place. In ancient Egypt, it was worshipped as a spiritual guardian and a sacred being. During the Middle Ages, it was feared, associated with witches and the occult. In Eastern cultures, it was seen as a protector of the soul and the home. According to Jung, these cultural variations weren't random. They were reflections of a deeper psychological truth. The cat represents what cannot be tamed, the mysterious force that watches from the shadows, the parts of reality that lie beyond our conscious control. Jung believed that whenever an archetype appears in our lives, whether through a dream, a synchronicity, or even the sudden and inexplicable presence of an animal, we must pay attention. The cat, in that sense, is not just a creature. It is a symbol pointing toward a part of ourselves that longs to be integrated. It might be our forgotten intuition, the sensitivity we've been taught to repress, or the sacred connection to mystery that modern life has taught us to ignore. In his writings, Jung once said, "Where there is a cat, there is a threshold between worlds, between what we can see and what lies hidden, between the conscious mind and the unconscious." The cat does not enter your life by accident, he warned. It arrives as a messenger of the unsaid, a guardian of the unresolved. Its unpredictable behavior, its ability to see in darkness, its apparent indifference, yet undeniable presence. These are all traits that mirror the complexity of the human soul. This is precisely why Jung was never surprised when, during times of existential crisis or profound inner transformation, people began noticing cats more frequently in their lives. For him, this was a clear sign that the unconscious had begun to speak, not with words, not with logic, but with symbols. And few symbols, Jung said, are as powerful, as ancient, and as revealing as the gaze of a cat, watching you silently as if it knows something you have yet to remember. Carl Jung was far from an ordinary scientist. While many in his field focused solely on what could be measured, dissected, and proven, Jung ventured into the deepest corners of the human soul. For him, the soul held as many mysteries as the vast universe, and within those mysteries were symbols, living, breathing keys to understanding the psyche. These symbols appeared in dreams, in synchronous moments, and even in everyday interactions with animals. Among those animals, cats held a particularly intriguing significance. Throughout his life, Jung shared haunting and profound reflections on these enigmatic creatures. Through decades of study, clinical observation, and symbolic interpretation, Jung arrived at three key revelations about cats, insights that would not only challenge conventional thinking, but also transform the way many perceive these animals. His first revelation was that the cat embodies what he called the active shadow. This is the side of ourselves we tend to suppress or deny, the fears we try to forget, the guilt we bury deep within, the traumas that haunt us silently, and the forbidden desires we are too ashamed to confront. According to Jung, cats do not merely represent this shadow in our dreams, they can actually mirror it in real life. He noted that a cat's presence during emotionally turbulent moments might not be coincidental at all. When a cat enters a room during times of emotional chaos or behaves strangely in specific areas of a home, it may be signaling something deeper, an unacknowledged part of our psyche that is surfacing and asking to be recognized. There are countless accounts from patients who reported that their cat would approach them only during moments of severe anxiety or sadness, almost as if drawn by an invisible thread. Jung interpreted these moments not as random, but as symbolic expressions of the shadow-seeking integration. The cat, unlike the human, does not run from the darkness. It stares straight into it, fearless and unwavering. Jung's second revelation about cats is equally fascinating. He believed that the cat functions as a living channel of deep intuition. While humans are often lost in thought, buried under responsibilities, and governed by the ego, cats remain tethered to something far more primal and essential. Jung described animals, especially cats, as beings who exist in a state of purer consciousness because they are not ruled by the fragmented self-image that dominates human awareness. And in the case of cats, this pure consciousness is especially sensitive, almost otherworldly. When a cat silently enters a room and fixates on an empty corner, Jung suggested it wasn't staring into nothingness. Rather, it was perceiving something beyond the grasp of rational understanding, something invisible to the human eye but present on a symbolic or energetic level. For him, cats were like spiritual antennas. They detect subtle shifts in the environment, emotional undercurrents, and symbolic presences that elude our ordinary senses. Their reactions come from a place beyond logic, deeply instinctive, rooted in the collective unconscious. In essence, when your cat behaves strangely, don't dismiss it. It may be sensing something your conscious mind has not yet caught up with. The third revelation, the most extraordinary and spiritually resonant of all, pertained to something Jung could only partially explain with science, but deeply understood through symbolism. The cat's purr as a frequency of psychic healing. To Jung, the act of a cat purring wasn't just a comforting sound or a sign of contentment. It was something far more profound. He believed that this subtle vibration carried a symbolic resonance capable of influencing the emotional and psychological state of a human being. In his view, the purr operated like a subtle, energetic therapy, an ancient, unspoken language of healing. It could quiet the mind, soothe the nerves, and even help the soul reintegrate lost fragments of itself. Just as music or chanting can lead to trance states and inner peace, so too could the humble purr of a cat guide a person into deeper psychological balance. The rhythm of the purr, he thought, aligned with natural frequencies in the human body and psyche, restoring inner harmony in ways modern science was only beginning to grasp. To Jung, cats were not simply animals. They were guardians of the unconscious, silent observers of our emotional landscapes, and messengers of hidden truths. They walked the boundary between the seen and the unseen, between the rational and the mysterious. And in doing so, they offered us mirrors, keys, and even healing, if we were willing to pay attention. Jung believed that certain soft, repetitive sounds could act as bridges between the mind and the soul. Tibetan chants, shamanic drumming, and even mantras, in his view, were not just auditory experiences, but profound vibrations capable of restoring inner balance. To him, sound wasn't merely a physical phenomenon, it was a carrier of energy that reached deeper layers of consciousness. Within this context, the purring of a cat, a steady hum emitted when it's relaxed, at peace, or near someone in pain, was far more than a sign of contentment. It was a healing frequency, a sacred resonance that could subtly harmonize the emotional field of anyone who listened with openness and sensitivity. Today, science is beginning to explore these ancient intuitions, discovering that the frequency of a cat's purr typically ranges between 25 and 150 Hz, a range that has been shown to aid in the regeneration of tissues and the reduction of stress. This modern confirmation of ancient knowledge didn't surprise Jung. Long before these discoveries, he had already sensed the spiritual essence behind this phenomenon. For him, the purr was like a silent prayer, a vibration that originated not from the cat's body, but from its soul. It was a frequency that bypassed logic and reason, speaking directly to the hidden layers of the psyche, to the very depths of the human spirit. Carl Jung saw three fundamental revelations embodied in cats. They served as shadows, intuitive channels, and spiritual healers. Their presence was not something casual or mundane, but a meaningful encounter with something greater. For him, every cat that entered a person's life was a living symbol of the mystery that resides within each of us, a silent mirror that guides, confronts, and sometimes even heals us. Their appearance, far from being mere coincidence, was a form of dialogue between the visible and the invisible, a quiet invitation to self-exploration and introspection. Perhaps this is why, when a cat stares at you from a dark corner in complete silence, it is not looking at what's in front of you. It is seeing something within you. For Carl Jung, knowledge was meaningless unless it could be lived. Symbolic revelations, no matter how profound, had to be integrated into daily life. And animals, especially cats, were not exceptions to this principle. In Jung's vision, the symbolic dimension of life was not just a philosophical idea, but a path to personal transformation. Everything had meaning, and every encounter had the potential to reveal hidden aspects of the soul. If these feline creatures truly embody aspects of our shadow, channel deep intuitions, and emit healing vibrations, then their presence in our homes should not be taken lightly. Jung didn't offer rigid rules, but gentle invitations, ways of seeing more consciously, of interacting with the symbolic richness of life through our relationship with cats. He believed that by paying attention, by engaging with these moments with awareness, we could deepen our connection to the unconscious and accelerate the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole. One of Jung's first practical suggestions was to observe the cat as a living projection of the unconscious. In analytical psychology, everything that surrounds us can mirror internal processes. Just as dreams reveal what we feel without realizing it, the behavior of a cat can be a symbolic expression of our emotional, mental, or spiritual state. If your cat consistently avoids certain rooms in your home, shows sudden discomfort in specific moments, or chooses to sit quietly beside you during times of crisis, it might be sensing energies or emotional undercurrents that you haven't yet acknowledged. Jung emphasized that such observations were not meant to provoke paranoia, but rather awareness. The cat becomes a subtle mirror of the unseen, a barometer of the invisible. It reflects what lies beneath the surface, what we often avoid confronting in ourselves. A second practical recommendation was to keep a symbolic behavior journal. Just as Jung encouraged his patients to maintain dream journals, he also saw the value in recording coincidences, sensations, and patterns associated with animals, particularly during pivotal moments in life. If you are going through a period of grief, anxiety, or personal transformation, and your cat begins to behave unusually, this may hold significant meaning. Jung advised writing down these occurrences, correlating them with internal emotions or major life decisions. Over time, such records may reveal patterns and connections between the outer world and your inner landscape, patterns that were previously invisible but now illuminate the intricate dialogue between soul and experience. The third, and perhaps most important suggestion from Jung was to treat the cat with symbolic respect, not merely as a pet, but as a companion on the journey toward individuation. Individuation, for Jung, was the path to becoming a complete self, the integration of all parts of the psyche, including those that we ignore or suppress. If the cat represents our shadow, our intuition, and our healing capacity, then honoring its presence is also a way of honoring those hidden parts of ourselves. To caress a cat with awareness, to allow it to approach when it feels the need, to respect its choice of where to sleep, and to express gratitude for its companionship during times of sadness. All these simple actions can become spiritual rituals, acts of inner integration. Jung believed that honoring symbols activates their transformative power. When we dismiss the symbolic, we reduce it to triviality and close ourselves off to its messages. But when we approach it with reverence, we awaken its capacity to teach and to heal. This is why Jung advised seeing the cat not as just another animal sharing our home, but as a figure charged with archetypal wisdom, a silent guardian who, if treated with respect, can reveal far more than we might expect. And perhaps, after absorbing all this, you may begin to look at your cat differently, because according to Jung, nothing that appears external is truly external. Everything is a reflection of the soul, reaching out to remind you of who you are, even if that reminder comes through the mysterious gaze of a feline silently watching you from the shadows. For Carl Jung, nothing that happens in our lives is ever truly random. What many people call coincidence, he understood as synchronicity, meaningful events that occur precisely when the soul is ready to perceive them. These are not accidents. They are signs. They are mirrors that reflect something deep within us, waiting to be acknowledged. From this perspective, the arrival of a cat in your life can be far more profound than just acquiring a pet. It can be a message, a living symbol placed before you by life, or perhaps by your own unconscious, to awaken something within you, to shift your perception, to encourage you to look inward with new eyes. Carl Jung believed that everything around us is a projection of our inner world, a reflection of aspects of our psyche that we may not be consciously aware of. And so, if a cat shows up during a period of emotional turmoil, if it chooses to stay by your side during long, silent nights, if it gazes at you with a knowing stare, as if it understands exactly what you're going through, don't ignore it. Don't brush it off as just another animal. It might not be that simple. It might be the embodiment of a mystery, a silent messenger from the depths of your own being. Just like our dreams communicate through symbols, cats can become living metaphors, creatures whose penetrating gaze, mysterious independence, and heightened sensitivity speak volumes about the parts of ourselves we've neglected or hidden away. They confront us with truths we've refused to see, our repressed emotions, our unresolved fears, our intuitive and sacred essence that we've tried to silence in the noise of modern life. And then something happens when you truly stop to observe your cat, not just casually, but with deep presence. Something inside you begins to shift. You start to realize that its silences aren't empty. They're full of meaning, that its movements aren't random. They're purposeful, that its presence isn't merely comforting, it's symbolic. You begin to understand that your cat might be guiding you, protecting you, even healing wounds within you that you didn't know existed. Because sometimes, as Jung once said, The soul doesn't shout, it whispers. And one of those whispers may come in the soft, silent form of a cat who crosses your path not by chance, but by cosmic design. If you already have a cat, this is your invitation to look at it differently. Ask yourself, what part of me is this creature reflecting? What energy is it picking up? What message is it trying to deliver? Because it might be more than just a companion. It might be a guide, a sentinel, a healer wrapped in fur. And if you don't have a cat, but something about this message resonates deeply within you, maybe it's only a matter of time before this living symbol steps into your life. Because, as Jung said, when the soul needs something, the universe conspires to reveal it, even if it comes in the form of a feline who wasn't invited, yet arrives at precisely the right moment. Have you ever had an unexplainable experience with a cat? Have you ever felt that your pet knew more about you than you did about yourself? Share it. Your story might be the sign someone else is waiting for. In a world that grows louder and more disconnected every day, there are still sacred symbols that continue to gently knock at our door. And sometimes those symbols have whiskers, walk silently, and gaze at us with the timeless wisdom of a being who's been here long before we ever were. Thank you for joining me in this deep reflection, inspired by the psychology of Carl Jung. And remember, nothing external is truly external. Everything that reaches you is trying to reveal something that already lives within you. If this message spoke to your soul, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new content. What you're about to hear isn't just another message about kindness and unconditional love. It's a deep dive into the human psyche, revealing a truth Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, discovered after decades of studying the soul. If you've ever felt that your kindness turns against you, that people mistake your nobility for weakness, or that the more you give, the less you receive, this message will show you why. Jung noticed a disturbing pattern. He saw it clearly in his patients. Those who believed they were too good were often the ones suffering the most. But what does it really mean to be good? In today's world, we've created an idealized image of goodness, someone who's always available, who never says no, who forgives without hesitation, and who constantly puts others before themselves. Jung realized that this version of goodness wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. Because when we confuse kindness with self-sacrifice, when we see love as the absence of boundaries, we become our own executioners. Jung uncovered something deeply unsettling. The more we strive to be perfectly good, the stronger our shadow becomes. That hidden part of us we deny, suppress, and try to bury beneath layers of forced niceness. It's like trying to hold a ball underwater. The harder you push, the stronger it fights to rise. Picture your kindness as a bright light. Society teaches us that to keep that light on, we must shut off everything else: our anger, our needs, our limits. But Jung saw how flawed this idea was. True kindness doesn't come from denying who we are. It comes from embracing every part of us. How many times have you heard that voice inside whispering, "Enough," only to silence it because a good person wouldn't think that way? How many times have you buried your anger, your frustration, your pain, thinking these feelings make you less worthy? Every time you reject these parts of yourself, you don't become better, you become more broken. This message isn't telling you to give up on being kind. It's calling you to awaken from naive kindness and transform it into something deeper, stronger, and more complete. Because true kindness isn't the absence of darkness, it's the ability to integrate every part of who we are into a whole. What you're about to uncover might shake the foundation of everything you believed about goodness. It might challenge old beliefs about love, sacrifice, and authenticity. But if you dare to listen, if you allow yourself to question what you've always taken for granted, you'll find a truth that frees you. True kindness doesn't weaken you. It empowers you. It doesn't drain you. It fills you. It doesn't make you smaller. It makes you whole. This is the dark but honest wisdom Jung left behind. To be truly good, we must first become truly whole. And that journey begins by facing the shadows we've worked so hard to deny. When Jung spoke of the shadow, he wasn't talking about something abstract or symbolic. He meant a real psychological force we all carry within us, a part of us we're taught to fear, repress, and disown. It's where we hide what we think is unacceptable. Our anger, our deepest desires, our right to say no, our need to be seen. For those who consider themselves inherently kind, the shadow becomes a terrifying place. Their identity is built around being the light, always helping, never failing, being there for everyone. The thought of having a dark side fills them with dread, as if admitting it would destroy everything they think they are. But this denial comes with a heavy cost. When we reject our shadow, when we pretend it doesn't exist, it gains power. It becomes uncontrollable. It's like trying to hold back a river with your hands. Eventually, it will break through. Repressed energy doesn't disappear. It twists, it mutates, it emerges in ways we can't control. Overly kind people experience this in subtle but destructive ways. It appears as resentment after helping someone who never returns the favor. It shows up as silent anger when others cross invisible boundaries. It turns into deep sadness when they realize no one truly sees their needs. The more we strive to be perfectly good, the more vulnerable we become to our own shadow. It's a strange paradox. Deny your anger, and you become passive-aggressive. Reject your need for recognition, and you become subtly manipulative. Pretend you don't need anything, and you become an emotional vampire, unconsciously draining others. According to Jung, the shadow isn't our enemy, it's an essential part of our inner world. It holds not only our negative traits, but also our unclaimed power, our ability to set healthy boundaries, to stand up for ourselves when needed. When we reject the shadow, we don't just lose our darkness, we lose part of our light. Imagine someone who's spent their whole life being the good one. They were taught that anger is bad, that setting boundaries is selfish, that their needs come last. This person doesn't just suppress their anger, they suppress their personal power, their ability to say no, their right to take up space. Their kindness becomes a self-made prison. Jung understood this isn't real kindness. It's fear disguised as virtue. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of not being enough. Truly kind people aren't those who never get angry or never set limits. They're the ones who've learned to integrate all their parts into a coherent whole. The shadow, when acknowledged and embraced, becomes a wellspring of strength. It's like a dark garden. If we dare to enter, we'll find not just our fears, but also our deepest powers. That's where naive kindness transforms into conscious wisdom. For Jung, true spiritual work isn't about eliminating the shadow. It's about learning to dance with it. It means recognizing that our ability to feel anger is just as sacred as our ability to love, that our boundaries are just as important as our generosity, and that our need for recognition is just as valid as our desire to give. This is the first step on the path to a more authentic and powerful kindness, realizing that the shadow is not your enemy, but a part of you that has long waited to be seen, embraced, and honored. And when you finally dare to meet its gaze, you'll find that what you feared the most might be exactly what you needed to feel whole. Blind kindness comes at a cost paid not only in emotional exhaustion, but in delayed dreams, unbalanced relationships, and a half-lived life. It shows up as the constant fatigue of those who give endlessly, the silent frustration of those who suppress their own needs, and the deep loneliness of those surrounded by people who never truly see them. Think of someone who has made self-sacrifice their identity. This person gives not just their time and energy, they give away essential pieces of themselves. Every time they ignore their own needs for the sake of others, every time they silence their voice to keep the peace, every time they say yes while their soul screams no, they're paying with fragments of their essence. The modern martyr doesn't wear a visible crown of thorns. Their suffering takes the form of sleepless nights, worrying about others' problems, of relationships where they always give more than they receive, of a schedule so full of commitments to others that there's no space left for themselves. It's a way of life that society not only accepts, but praises, without seeing the deep self-neglect that lies beneath that apparent nobility. Jung observed that this pattern of self-sacrifice often has deep roots in childhood. Maybe you were the child who had to be the good one to keep peace in the family. Maybe you learned that your worth depended on how much you could do for others. These early lessons become invisible chains that bind us to self-destructive behaviors. The relationships of someone who practices blind kindness follow a predictable script. They become everyone's confidant, the shoulder to cry on, the unwavering support. But when they need help, they're met with an unsettling emptiness. People become so accustomed to receiving from them that they never even consider offering anything back. It's a unique kind of loneliness, being surrounded by people who know your kindness, but not your heart. The exhaustion of constantly giving isn't just physical. It's a soul-level fatigue that drains not only energy, but the joy of living. It's like a slow spiritual death, where the person gradually loses touch with their own dreams, desires, and needs. They become an empty vessel, existing solely to fulfill others' needs. This imbalance creates a toxic dynamic where the kind person becomes increasingly indispensable to others while becoming increasingly invisible to themselves. It's a form of codependency disguised as virtue, but in truth, it's a self-imposed prison. This person becomes a resource to others, slowly losing their own humanity. The cruel irony is that this excessive kindness doesn't just hurt the one practicing it, it also harms those it's meant to help. By constantly rescuing others, by always being available, by never letting them face the consequences of their actions, the chronically kind person stunts the growth of those they're trying to save. This behavior pattern doesn't just drain you, it breeds resentment. The resentment of someone who gave everything and received nothing in return. Of someone who was there for everyone, yet finds no one there when they need support. And when that resentment is buried under layers of kindness, it becomes a poison that slowly seeps into every relationship. This is the real cost of blind kindness. We don't just lose our energy, our time, or our peace of mind. We lose connection to our true essence, to our deepest desires, to our ability to set healthy boundaries. We become diluted versions of ourselves, existing mostly in service to others' needs. Integrating the shadow is not a smooth or comfortable process. It's a journey that demands courage, honesty, and the willingness to face what we've long avoided. It's like turning on a light in a room that's been dark for years. At first, what we see might be unsettling, but only by seeing clearly can we begin to put things in order and transform. This process starts with acknowledging that our excessive kindness has often been a form of avoidance. We avoid conflict. We avoid rejection. We avoid the possibility of being judged or criticized. Behind every act of excessive kindness hides a fundamental fear, the fear of not being loved for who we truly are. Transformation requires a very particular kind of bravery. We must be willing to disappoint those who've grown used to our unconditional availability. It's like rewriting an invisible contract we've upheld with the world for years. The silent agreement has been, "I'll be everything you need, and in return, you'll love me." But now, the new contract says, "I'll be authentic, even if that means I won't always please you." Integrating the shadow doesn't mean becoming cruel or indifferent. On the contrary, it means developing a kindness that is more powerful and real. It's the difference between a weak flame that any breeze can blow out and a strong fire that gives warmth and light without being consumed. True integration happens when we realize that our ability to set boundaries is just as sacred as our ability to give. The power that comes from this integration is fundamentally different from cruelty. Cruelty is born from fear, from weakness, from the need to dominate. True power, the kind that comes from shadow integration, emerges from self-acceptance, from the ability to stand in our truth without needing to overpower others. The wise kindness that arises from this journey is like a tree with deep roots. It doesn't need to prove its strength by tearing others down. Its power is shown in its steadiness, in offering shelter when it's right to do so, and in maintaining its natural boundaries without apologizing for taking up space in the world. Those who reach this integration discover a beautiful paradox. The more they accept their darkness, the more genuinely kind they become. They no longer give out of compulsion or fear, but from a conscious choice. Their generosity flows from abundance, not from emptiness. Their compassion comes from strength, not weakness. This new way of being demands a continued commitment to authenticity. It means recognizing that sometimes we will feel anger, and that this anger can serve as a compass pointing to where our limits have been crossed. It means accepting that sometimes we will need to say no, and that this no can be just as sacred as any yes we've ever offered. Integration also means acknowledging that not all our shadow parts are negative. Within that shadow, we've feared lie our most powerful gifts, our discernment, our intuition about others' intentions, our fierce ability to protect what we hold sacred. The wise kindness that comes from integration has discernment. It knows when to give and when to withhold, when to move closer and when to keep distance. It's not a kindness that spills out aimlessly, but one that flows with purpose and awareness. It's a kindness that honors both the giver and the receiver, that sees healthy boundaries as a form of mutual respect. This transformation allows us to move through the world in an entirely new way. We're no longer the candle that burns itself out to light others' paths. We become the lighthouse, radiating our own light, guiding others without depletion. Our kindness becomes more powerful precisely because we no longer need everyone's approval or love. The true integration of the shadow allows us to be kind, not out of fear of being something else, but because we choose to be, out of wholeness. It's a kindness that includes our strength, our limits, our ability to say no, our willingness to disappoint when necessary. At its core, it is kindness born not from fear, but from truth. The establishment of healthy boundaries is a practice Jung saw as essential to psychological development. Yet, for those who've built their identity around endless kindness, setting limits can feel like a betrayal of their innermost nature. This is where ancient wisdom becomes especially relevant. Boundaries are not walls that divide us from others. They are sacred lines that define where we end and where others begin. The ability to create boundaries starts with a revolutionary act, recognizing our inherent worth. Not worth based on what we give or do for others, but the inner value that exists simply because we are. This recognition isn't selfish. It's a fundamental act of psychological honesty. When we begin to truly value ourselves, a new way of relating to the world unfolds. We no longer need to earn our right to exist through excessive goodness. We start to see that reciprocity in relationships is not a luxury. It is a psychological necessity. Healthy relationships are those in which giving and receiving flow in balance. This understanding changes the way we interact with others. We begin to realize that when we allow others to cross our boundaries repeatedly, we not only harm ourselves, we also prevent them from learning to respect personal limits. Genuine kindness includes the strength to uphold clear boundaries, because these boundaries protect both our ability to give and the dignity of those who receive. People who learn to set healthy boundaries encounter a fascinating paradox. Their relationships, though fewer, become far more meaningful. Some may drift away when we are no longer unconditionally available, but those who stay will be the ones who truly respect and value us as whole beings. The practice of setting boundaries involves developing a new emotional vocabulary. We begin to sense the difference between authentic guilt and manipulated guilt, between true responsibility and the burdens we've wrongly taken on. This process also means recognizing that our time, energy, and emotional resources are limited and sacred. We can't give from an empty well, and maintaining our boundaries is how we ensure we always have something to offer when it's truly needed and appropriate. The true protection of our kindness doesn't come from building walls, but from developing wise discernment about where, when, and with whom we share our gifts. It's like tending a garden. It requires both clear borders and constant care to flourish. When we guard our energy and resources properly, our ability to be genuinely kind grows stronger, not weaker. The alchemy of transformation is a profound process that begins when we finally allow our light and shadow to dance together. It's like watching two streams merge to create something entirely new, neither purely light nor purely dark, but a new kind of power born from conscious integration. This alchemical journey starts when we stop fighting against our dual nature. Jung discovered that true transformation doesn't happen by trying to eliminate our darker parts, but by allowing them to teach us what we need to learn. Our anger shows us where we need to set boundaries. Our resentment points to where we've been giving too much. Our sadness reveals where more care is needed, and authentic strength emerges from this integration, like gold purified through the alchemical fire of self-awareness. It's no longer the brute force of aggression, nor the weakness disguised as endless kindness. It becomes a new, refined power, one that knows when to move forward and when to pull back, when to give and when to conserve, when to speak and when to remain silent. People who achieve this integration develop a particular presence. They don't need to prove their goodness or their power. They simply are. Their authenticity becomes their shield, and their truth their sword. They've learned that real strength lies not in controlling others, but in mastering themselves. The wisdom that comes from this transformation is like a controlled flame. It can warm or burn, depending on how it's used. Those who reach this state understand that their power isn't meant to dominate, but to protect what is sacred, including their own essence. They've learned that kindness without discernment is just as dangerous as power without compassion. This new way of being in the world demands constant vigilance, not from fear, but from awakened awareness. It's like tending a balanced garden. Some plants need more sun, others more shade, and the wise gardener knows both are necessary for a healthy ecosystem. In the same way, we learn to nourish both our light and our shadow, knowing that both are essential to our wholeness. The kindness that comes from this alchemy is a conscious choice, not a compulsion born of fear or guilt. It's a kindness that knows its worth, that doesn't need to prove itself constantly, that can say no without guilt and yes without resentment. It's a kindness that has made peace with its own shadow, and therefore doesn't fear the darkness in others. This transformation is an ongoing process, not a final destination. It's an eternal dance between light and shadow, power and compassion, giving and receiving. Every day presents us with new chances to refine this balance, to consciously choose how to use our power, to be kind from a place of strength rather than fear. This personal alchemy creates a ripple effect in the world around us. When we allow ourselves to be whole, we give others implicit permission to do the same. When we show that it's possible to be both strong and kind, both powerful and compassionate, we create a new model of what it means to be truly human. The final transformation leads us to a place where we understand that real kindness is not a straitjacket that limits us, but a power that sets us free. It's not a mask we wear to be accepted, but an authentic expression of who we truly are. It's a state of being where our power and compassion flow from the same source, where our light and shadow work together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. The journey we've explored through Jung's wisdom isn't just a set of ideas. It's an invitation to deep transformation. A transformation that begins the moment we accept that our kindness doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful, that our power doesn't have to be feared to be respected, and that our wholeness includes both light and shadow. Jung has shown us that the path to a more authentic and powerful life doesn't lie in denying our dual nature, but in consciously embracing it. When we integrate our shadow, when we allow our power and our kindness to coexist, we become more complete, more capable of creating the life we truly desire. Now the invitation is to take the next step, to look within and ask yourself, what parts of you have you been denying in the name of being good? What power have you been repressing out of fear of being less accepted? What boundaries have you been avoiding for fear of disappointing others? This is the moment to remember. Your kindness does not depend on your perfection. Your worth is not defined by how much you give or how much you sacrifice. Your power doesn't lessen your capacity to love, and your boundaries do not make you any less worthy of being loved. The transformation Jung invites us to make is not a destination. It's an ongoing journey. Every day offers new opportunities to choose authenticity over people-pleasing, conscious power over weakness disguised as virtue, real kindness over automatic self-sacrifice. The world needs people who have integrated both their light and their shadow, who understand that true goodness doesn't come from repression, but from conscious integration. It needs whole human beings who can embody both strength and compassion, who know when to give and when to hold back, who understand that their boundaries are just as sacred as their ability to love. As you close this message, remember, you're not here to be perfect. You're here to be whole. And in that wholeness, in that integration of every part of you, you will find not only the strength to create the life you dream of, but also the wisdom to live it with authenticity and true power. The question now isn't whether you're good enough. The real question is, are you ready to be truly powerful? Not the kind of power that dominates, but the kind that transforms. Not the power that fears the shadow, but the one that integrates it and uses it to create something greater than ourselves. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's walk this path of transformation together. Within you lies a dormant force, one that has been waiting in silence, patient and still, yearning to be unleashed the moment you find the courage to release the pain you've been carrying for so long. That pain, once your constant companion, becomes a veil that dims your inner light, a weight that holds back the truth of who you really are. But the moment you begin to let it go, even slightly, that dormant power begins to stir, gently at first, then more boldly as you make space for something far greater: self-love. True self-love is not some far-off, untouchable ideal. It is not reserved for those who live without flaws or who have never known struggle. Instead, it rises from the depths of your being, the moment you stop fighting your inner pain and start embracing it, not as your enemy, but as your teacher. Carl Jung once taught that pain, when brought into the light of awareness, becomes a guiding force, leading us not toward despair, but toward the wholeness of who we are meant to be. Letting go of pain does not mean ignoring it or pretending it was never there. It means facing it with the quiet strength of acceptance. It means sitting with it, understanding its roots, and giving yourself permission to stop letting it define your story. Through this courageous process, something remarkable begins to happen. Self-love is no longer just a word. It becomes a living energy that begins to flow through you. You realize that it was never about being perfect or seeking approval. It was always about remembering your worth. This is not a superficial confidence. It's not based on achievements, appearance, or praise from others. It's something deeper, a state of being where you see yourself, all of yourself, and still choose to honor the person you are. When the pain begins to dissolve, it opens the door to a freedom you may have never known. And from that freedom, something extraordinary emerges, a relationship with yourself rooted in compassion, presence, and authenticity. As you continue releasing the pain that once bound you, a subtle yet powerful transformation begins to unfold. You start shedding the layers of judgment and self-criticism that clouded your vision. The harsh inner voice that once told you you weren't enough starts to soften. In its place, a new voice arises, one that speaks with kindness, one that lifts you up instead of tearing you down. In this space of radical compassion for your own humanity, self-love is no longer a vague concept. It becomes a felt experience, changing the way you think, feel, and act. The liberation from suffering becomes a bridge, a passage into a higher frequency of being. In this new vibration, peace and authenticity are not occasional visitors. They are your natural state. The inner dialogue shifts. The words you speak to yourself carry gentleness and wisdom. Judgment fades. The inner critic loses its power. Your inner world becomes a sanctuary, and your own voice becomes your greatest ally. This new relationship with yourself becomes the fertile ground upon which a meaningful life can be built. And from that solid foundation, your external world begins to shift as well. The more deeply at peace you are with yourself, the more you begin to attract connections that mirror that same peace. Relationships rooted in mutual respect, honesty, and presence. You become a magnet for authenticity, and your very presence begins to change the energy of the spaces you enter. This healthy, vibrant energy field that surrounds you is the living proof of the transformation that occurs when pain is released and love is allowed in. And with that love comes something else. Freedom from needing constant validation. You no longer look to others to tell you that you matter. You feel it from within. You know it. Your worth becomes unshakable, independent of circumstances or opinions. This is a quiet kind of power, a sacred confidence, one that does not shout, but speaks with calm certainty. It is the kind of power that allows you to walk through uncertainty with grounded grace, to stand firm even when the ground beneath you trembles. Releasing inner pain is not just an act of healing. It is a profound rebirth, a reawakening to your truest nature. In that rebirth lies the real power of self-love, a force without boundaries, a light that walks with you as you step fully into your life. As you rise from this inner liberation, your entire energy field transforms. You're no longer tethered to old patterns of self-doubt, shame, or fear. Instead, you begin to flow with a natural harmony, one that seeps into every area of your life. This vibrational renewal acts like a magnet, attracting people and experiences that are aligned with your authenticity. A beautiful cycle begins, one of growth, expansion, and aligned living. And as this energy continues to grow, so too does your capacity for forgiveness, not only toward others, but toward yourself. This kind of forgiveness is not about forgetting what happened or dismissing your feelings. It's about releasing yourself from the grip of emotional burdens that no longer serve you. It's about reclaiming your power. With every emotional knot you untangle, self-love takes deeper root, nourishing your confidence and fortifying your sense of self-worth. A profound coherence begins to emerge between what you feel, what you think, and what you do. This internal harmony leads to external clarity. Your decisions become more aligned, your actions more intentional, and life begins to reflect that alignment back to you in the form of synchronicities, opportunities, and relationships that support your soul's expansion. And yet this journey towards self-love is not a destination. It's a commitment, a conscious daily practice of choosing yourself. It's about tuning in, paying attention, offering kindness, and tending to your inner world like a sacred garden. In this space of unconditional love for yourself, you discover a freedom that no one else can give you, a freedom to be wholly and unapologetically you. This freedom is the root of a fulfilling life. In its presence, joy and peace cease to be fleeting. They become constant companions on your path. The power that rises from within when you release your pain is nothing short of revolutionary. It is the power to live from your truth, to reclaim the wholeness that has always been yours. This freedom redefines everything: how you see yourself, how you move through the world, and what you choose to allow into your life. You no longer need others to complete you. You no longer chase temporary circumstances to feel secure. You are the anchor. You are the peace. And the confidence that comes from this deep self-love is not loud or boastful. It's steady. It's calm. It holds you steady even in life's most turbulent storms. It becomes the voice that says, "You are safe. You are whole. You are enough." And with this new way of being, you begin to set boundaries, not out of fear, but out of love. Boundaries that protect your energy and honor your truth. Boundaries that create space for the kind of life and the kind of love you truly deserve. You learn to say no without guilt and to prioritize your well-being without fear. You begin to understand that loving yourself is not an act of selfishness. It's the very foundation upon which genuine love for others is built. It is only when you honor your own needs, your limits, and your truth that you are truly capable of offering love that is free, honest, and unburdened by resentment or expectation. This kind of self-love, born from a process of inner healing, becomes a gateway to an infinite well of creativity, clarity, and purpose. When you release the mental and emotional weight once occupied by pain and unresolved wounds, you clear a sacred space within yourself. And in that space, something powerful begins to emerge. New dreams, inspirations, and inner callings that resonate deeply with your soul's truest desires. Your mind becomes more open, your heart more receptive. This alignment with your inner truth strengthens your intuition, guiding you with more ease toward choices that nourish your body, mind, and spirit. Slowly, almost quietly, life begins to feel more authentic, less like something you're surviving, and more like something you're creating with intention. The energy you emit from this state of wholeness becomes magnetic. It speaks a silent language that others can feel without words. It draws in experiences, people, and opportunities that uplift and energize you, because they are now aligned with your true self. Releasing inner pain and cultivating self-love is not merely a personal achievement. It is a quiet revolution, one that transforms not only your inner landscape, but also the way you engage with the world around you. It's a threshold into a life of peace, fulfillment, and truth, a sacred gift that can only arise when you dare to turn inward, to face yourself with honesty, and to love what you find without condition. As the inner noise quiets, a different version of you begins to emerge, one that no longer needs to hide behind masks, defenses, or coping strategies. What remains is a calm, authentic presence that no longer depends on external validation or chaos to define its worth. From that place, every step you take is infused with a quiet truth, one that can be felt more than explained. This authenticity allows you to fully inhabit the present moment in a way that was once unfamiliar. The past no longer imprisons you, and the future no longer frightens you. You begin to live here, in the now, with the peaceful certainty of someone who knows that they are already enough, without needing to be perfect, fixed, or proven. That deep recognition becomes the seed of a more conscious, liberated life. And from that seed, something rare and beautiful grows: resilience. But not the hard, rigid kind, not the one born of endurance or resistance. This resilience is soft, but unshakable. It's the kind that can bend without breaking, hold without clinging, and stand without forcing. It is the quiet strength of someone who knows how to move through pain without becoming it. You learn that pain is not a prison, it's a passage. And as you move through it with compassion rather than fear, you begin to understand yourself on levels previously unknown. This self-love becomes a mirror through which your perception of others also shifts. You no longer see through the lens of your wounds. Instead, you see people more clearly, with fewer projections and more understanding. Empathy grows not from neediness, but from a deeper knowing that every soul is walking its own sacred journey, often carrying pain we cannot see. The process of releasing pain becomes a doorway to a more integrated way of living. You stop searching for pieces of yourself in other people because you no longer believe you are incomplete. You remember that your wholeness was never lost. It was only buried beneath layers of fear and forgetting. This realization is fertile ground for the blooming of a new kind of self-love, one that does not demand or cling, one that does not fear or compete. It simply is, and in its quiet existence, it transforms everything it touches. The self-love that arises from the letting go of pain becomes a powerful, guiding presence, not loud or demanding, but constant, steady. It reminds you of your inherent worth, even in your moments of doubt or despair. This inner strength urges you to care for yourself with both tenderness and conviction. You learn to set boundaries, not as walls to keep others out, but as sacred lines that protect your peace and allow your energy to flourish. The peace born from this acceptance frees you from the exhausting chase of external approval. It connects you to a quiet, rooted confidence that doesn't waver with circumstances. With this newfound stability, you begin to walk toward your dreams with certainty. Not because you're guaranteed success, but because you now understand that your value isn't tied to outcomes or applause. You walk forward because you are aligned, because you are ready, and because you trust yourself. This authentic love for yourself also transforms the way you connect with others. Relationships begin to reflect the inner harmony you've cultivated. You attract connections based on mutual respect, honesty, and authenticity, not out of need, but out of shared purpose. Interactions are no longer a means to fill emotional voids. They become sacred exchanges where two whole beings meet, support, and grow together. The vibration of self-love doesn't stay contained. It ripples outward. It touches everything you do, everyone you meet. It's reflected in the quality of your work, the depth of your creativity, and the way your presence influences your environment. Living from this place is a daily invitation to celebrate the miracle of being alive. To show up each day, not just to survive, but to express, to connect, to evolve. It is the gift that emerges when you finally release the suffering that never truly belonged to you and open your heart to the love that's been waiting patiently within you all along. And in that opening, something sacred happens. You begin to relate to your emotions not as enemies, but as messengers. Each feeling, even the uncomfortable ones, becomes a doorway to deeper awareness. You stop resisting them, and instead, you listen. Your emotions begin to teach you, to guide you, to reveal parts of yourself that longed to be seen. This conscious relationship with your inner world creates emotional stability and equips you with the wisdom to navigate life's inevitable highs and lows with grace. As you become more grounded in your worth and rooted in love, limiting beliefs begin to dissolve. Beliefs that once told you you weren't enough, or that love had to be earned through suffering. They fade because they no longer match the truth you've uncovered within. The inner voices that once questioned your worth begin to fade in the face of the undeniable truth of your authenticity and inherent dignity. This mental and emotional renewal sets you free to act from a place of personal power and inner alignment. The impact of this transformation extends to every area of your life, from how you care for your body and mind to how you choose your actions, your relationships, and your aspirations. Living with self-love means cultivating a lifestyle that honors your holistic well-being, supporting habits and choices that nourish and strengthen you on every level. This love for yourself, born from the release of pain, also connects you to a deeper sense of purpose. As you begin to see yourself as a worthy and complete being, you align with the frequencies that draw opportunities and experiences reflecting that internal wholeness. Life becomes a mirror that reflects your inner growth and invites you to expand further on this path of healing and self-discovery. Each step becomes an invitation to explore the truth of your being more deeply, embracing both the light and the shadow with equal love. The self-love that emerges from letting go of suffering becomes the firm foundation upon which you build a life of authenticity, meaning, and infinite possibility. That deep connection to your inner truth becomes a beacon, illuminating the way toward a more authentic and fulfilling existence. The clarity that rises from releasing inner pain allows you to recognize and honor your true needs, desires, and boundaries, establishing a balance that sustains your emotional and spiritual well-being. The ongoing practice of this connection with yourself generates a resilience that prepares you to face challenges with calm and confidence. Every experience, no matter how difficult, becomes an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to deepen the self-love you've so carefully cultivated. As your integrity rises, you open yourself to receive the love and abundance the universe is waiting to offer you. The energy you radiate attracts circumstances and people who resonate with your vibration, enabling relationships and experiences that enrich your journey and nourish your soul. This ongoing process of expansion and self-knowledge becomes an endless voyage, a constant invitation to explore and embrace every facet of your being. In that exploration, you discover the freedom to fully express yourself, without fear or masks, celebrating the beauty and complexity that make you unique. Thus, the self-love that is born from releasing inner pain becomes the very force that propels your evolution, a never-ending source of light and power that accompanies you every step of the way, guiding you toward complete fulfillment and deep harmony with the life you deserve to live. Every moment lived from that renewed self-love becomes a conscious act of creation, where your intention and presence merge to shape a reality more aligned with your essence. This ability to manifest with authenticity and clarity is the tangible result of the inner healing you've achieved by letting go of the pain that once imprisoned you. In this state of vibrational coherence, doubts and fears lose ground to the confidence that emerges from the depths of your being. Your inner voice becomes steady and compassionate, reminding you of your worth and standing by you in every decision, free from judgment or external pressure. This renewed relationship with yourself strengthens your integrity and creates space for a more conscious and fulfilling life. The effects of this transformation extend far beyond the personal. They ripple into every interaction, every relationship, and every project you take on. By radiating an energy that is authentic and balanced, you draw to yourself experiences and people who uplift and support your journey, forming a virtuous cycle of growth and expansion. This elevated vibration also opens the door to greater creativity and inspiration, allowing you to connect with inner and universal sources that enrich your expression and guide you toward new ways of being and creating. The connection with this creative force is a manifestation of self-love that has transcended the limits of suffering. The journey toward this complete integration is a continuous process of discovery and acceptance, where each step opens new possibilities and deepens your commitment to yourself. On this path, self-love becomes the light that guides your way, a constant presence that supports and nourishes your evolution toward authenticity and freedom. That renewed self-love translates into a vibration that touches every aspect of your life, from the smallest everyday decisions to the major life choices that shape your destiny. The inner coherence you've cultivated becomes a magnet that attracts experiences aligned with your essence, making way for a natural flow of well-being, abundance, and fulfillment. As this energy grows stronger, patience and compassion toward yourself become essential pillars. You begin to understand that spiritual and emotional growth isn't linear, but a dynamic process filled with progress, setbacks, and continuous lessons. This deep acceptance allows you to maintain a high vibration, even in moments of difficulty, by preserving the connection with your inner light. The presence of this loving energy also transforms the way you communicate with yourself and with others. Words gain a new kind of power, born from a place of respect and care. They become vehicles for strengthening self-esteem and nurturing healthy relationships. This new quality in your language reflects the coherence and authenticity you now embody. The self-love that emerges as you release inner pain also connects you with a broader dimension of awareness and purpose. You feel part of something greater, aligned with universal energies and forces that guide and sustain your evolution. This profound connection brings a sense of belonging and meaning that nourishes your soul and enriches your life experience. Every step in this journey is an invitation to deepen your relationship with yourself, to celebrate your achievements, and to embrace your shadows with equal love. The process of letting go, healing, and loving from a place of truth becomes the sacred dance that sustains your growth and leads you toward true fulfillment and authentic freedom. That ongoing embrace of your entire self, with all your light and darkness, allows you to live from a place of unshakable authenticity. A deep acceptance of who you are at every moment builds a solid foundation for forming more genuine and meaningful relationships, where vulnerability becomes a courageous act and love flows freely without expectations or conditions. The energy born from this self-love expresses itself as a presence that radiates calm and confidence, a vibration that naturally attracts those who are seeking authentic and resonant connections. There's no need to strive or force encounters. It's simply about being and allowing your essence to unfold with grace and power. In this space of integration and healing, life takes on a new meaning. Every experience, even the ones that once seemed painful or limiting, now reveals itself as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to deepen your understanding of yourself and the world around you. The trust that arises from this connection with yourself enhances your ability to set healthy boundaries, communicate clearly, and act from a place of inner alignment. This balance strengthens your emotional and spiritual well-being, preparing you to face challenges with resilience and wisdom. The expansion that comes from living through authentic self-love opens doors to a deeper fulfillment, where inner peace and genuine joy walk beside you on your journey. This awakening is a call to honor and nurture that inner light, cultivating a life that reflects the greatness and beauty that have always lived within you. That inner expansion creates a resonance that impacts not only your personal world, but also the way you relate to your surroundings and community. The vibration you emit, rooted in self-love and acceptance, draws experiences that reflect and magnify that energy, supporting mutual growth and collective evolution. By cultivating this conscious presence, you learn to flow with the natural cycles of life, honoring the timing of each process and allowing transformation to unfold without rushing or resistance. This harmonious rhythm strengthens your connection with your true essence and brings you a sense of fulfillment that transcends the superficial. The daily practice of this deep love for yourself becomes a constant source of renewal and strength. It invites you to see each day as an opportunity to reaffirm your commitment to truth and authenticity, reminding you that the path to wholeness is a journey filled with learning, acceptance, and expansion. The effortless power of feminine energy finds its most genuine and potent expression in this self-love. From this solid foundation, every step you take becomes a conscious act of creation and manifestation, where your inner light guides and supports every movement with wisdom and grace. This process of transformation is an open invitation to all women seeking to reconnect with their essence, heal old wounds, and fully unleash their vibrational potential. It is a call to live from the heart, with courage and presence, embracing the wholeness of who you are and the strength you carry within. The resonance that flows from this state of authentic self-love has the power to deeply and lastingly influence your environment. As you remain in that energy, you create a vibrational field that inspires others to seek their own truth, igniting a ripple effect of healing and collective growth. This energetic exchange becomes an invisible thread that connects souls, encouraging a network of support and shared awakening. Respect for natural cycles and acceptance of personal rhythms allow inner transformation to unfold with patience and trust. This alignment with sacred time not only strengthens your emotional well-being, but also enhances your mental and spiritual clarity, enabling more conscious and purposeful decisions. Reaffirming your commitment to yourself each day is an act of love that nourishes your spirit and supports your evolution. This consistent practice helps you stay connected to your essence, even when external circumstances challenge your inner stability. Steadfastness on this path is key to fully integrating the light and the shadow that make up who you are. The power that stems from this self-love lies in its authenticity and its ability to manifest without effort or pretense. It's an energy that doesn't seek attention, but expresses itself through simplicity and truth, leaving a deep mark on those lucky enough to feel it. This collective awakening, driven by the feminine vibration in its highest form, is an invitation for all souls to reconnect with their inner power and walk together toward a higher consciousness. The expansion that arises from this union is the seed of a profound and lasting change that transcends generations and reshapes reality. Every step in this inner healing journey strengthens your ability to trust yourself and in life itself. By freeing yourself from suffering, you allow life to unfold with a renewed freshness, free from the burdens of the past and the doubts that once slowed your growth. This inner freedom becomes fertile ground where self-love blossoms and drives your evolution. In this state, your relationship with yourself becomes kind and compassionate. You learn to recognize your limits without judgment and celebrate your strengths without falling into arrogance. This balance lays the foundation for building solid self-esteem that doesn't rely on external validation, but grows from the honest recognition of your inherent worth. The self-love that is born from releasing pain also transforms the way you communicate, both internally and externally. Your inner voice softens, making space for words of encouragement and acceptance that strengthen your spirit. This inner shift is reflected in your relationships, where honesty and mutual respect create bonds that nourish and sustain. That internal transformation leads to a new way of inhabiting the world, where every interaction becomes a chance to express and reinforce that genuine love for yourself. The energy you emit from this deep self-acceptance creates a vibrational field that positively influences your environment, attracting experiences and people who resonate with that elevated frequency. The ability to sustain this unconditional self-love also boosts your emotional resilience, allowing you to face challenges with renewed calm and unwavering confidence. Instead of reacting from fear or insecurity, you learn to respond from a place of balance and inner wisdom, guided by the understanding that suffering does not define who you are. This new perspective invites you to care for yourself with tenderness and responsibility, establishing clear boundaries that protect your energy and well-being. Self-care becomes a sacred act, a tangible expression of the love you have for yourself to stay aligned with your path of growth. Moreover, the self-love that blooms after releasing pain fuels creativity and inspiration, making it easier to manifest dreams and goals that reflect your true essence. By connecting to this inner source, you discover a creative force that turns ideas into realities and guides you toward a more meaningful and fulfilling life. This expansive vibration also encourages a deeper connection to your intuition, reinforcing trust in your choices and aligning your actions with your soul's highest purpose. The clarity and serenity that arise from this inner state act like compasses, guiding each step and keeping you in tune with your most profound truth. That inner clarity reveals itself in a greater ability to discern what truly nourishes your soul and what distances you from your well-being. You learn to listen to the subtle signals from your body and mind, respecting their needs and natural rhythms. This mindful attention deepens your connection with the present moment and anchors you in a state of presence, which is the foundation of true self-love. The consistent practice of this self-listening and conscious care creates a virtuous cycle where energy constantly renews and expands. Each act of love toward yourself, no matter how small, becomes a building block in the creation of a strong and authentic self-esteem. This inner stability also frees you from rigid expectations and comparisons that once limited your growth. By releasing these burdens, you open up to radical acceptance that embraces both your virtues and imperfections, recognizing that both are integral to your humanity and unique beauty. The self-love that emerges from this process not only transforms your relationship with yourself, but also enriches the quality of your relationships with others. When you are at peace and aligned with yourself, you naturally attract connections rooted in respect, honesty, and genuine reciprocity. These are not superficial bonds. They are deep, soul-nourishing relationships that support your evolution and remind you of your inherent worth. In this space of harmony, compassion becomes one of your greatest tools, an energy that not only helps you forgive others, but most importantly, allows you to heal and grow within. When you turn that compassion inward, you begin to loosen the grip of harsh self-judgments and the silent punishments you've inflicted upon yourself over time. In doing so, you invite the light of unconditional love to reach every forgotten, shadowed corner of your being. There is a strength within you, a quiet power that has waited patiently beneath the surface, waiting for one sacred moment. The moment you choose to release the pain you've carried for far too long. This pain may have once served a purpose, but now it no longer defines you. Together, we've walked the path of self-love, not the kind painted by fleeting affirmations, but the kind born from a decision to stop surviving and begin living, to stop hiding and begin revealing who you truly are. When you embrace your essence with tenderness and courage, a powerful shift occurs. You begin to see yourself not as broken or incomplete, but as whole, as worthy, and as beautifully human. This awakening doesn't just shift your inner world, it radiates outward. It sends waves of peace into your surroundings. It touches the hearts of others, even in silence, even from a distance. You become a living reminder that healing is possible, that authenticity can thrive, and that love, real love, doesn't have to be earned, chased, or begged for. It already lives within you. Give yourself permission to live from that place, from that pure, unconditional love that lifts your spirit and nurtures your evolution. Every step you take from this place is a sacred act of devotion to yourself, to your journey, and to the life you are meant to live fully and freely. And if these words resonate with you, it's not by chance. It's because something deep within your soul already knew this truth. Something ancient, quiet, and wise inside of you has been waiting for this moment. Within every human being lies a deep and primal longing for acceptance, a need rooted in the very foundation of our psyche. From our earliest years, we seek the approving gaze of our parents, the recognition of our peers, and as adults, the validation of society. However, this constant pursuit of external approval often becomes a psychological prison, preventing us from discovering our true individuality. The fear of rejection is not merely discomfort in social situations. It is the shadow of a deeper insecurity, the inability to fully acknowledge and embrace ourselves. But what is rejection, if not the denial of a part of ourselves that we have yet to accept? The one who fears rejection from others has forgotten their own autonomy. They have surrendered their sense of self-worth to the judgment of others. Today, I invite you on a journey towards self-awareness, a journey that asks you to look into the mirror of your soul without fear and to free your mind from the weight of needing external validation. To understand the fear of rejection, we must go back to our earliest experiences in life, to the time when our need for love and acceptance began shaping how we perceive the world and ourselves. From the moment we are born, we are relational beings. We cannot survive without the care and presence of others. In childhood, unconditional love is essential for the development of a stable and secure identity. But when love becomes conditional, when a child learns that they are only worthy of affection if they behave a certain way, the seed of fear is planted. The the seed of rejection. Very early on, the child begins to observe the responses of their environment. If they cry too much, they're scolded. If they express anger, they're punished. If they're too spontaneous, they're told to calm down. And so, they begin to repress certain aspects of themselves in order to feel safe, in order to be accepted. In doing so, they start constructing a persona, a mask that allows them to navigate the world while hiding parts of their true nature. This persona, a central concept in analytical psychology, refers to the image we present to the outside world. While it helps us interact with society, it can also become a barrier, distancing us from our authentic self. The more we strive to be accepted, the more we disconnect from our real emotions, desires, and needs. The fear of rejection, then, is not a superficial reaction. It is the visible symptom of an internal conflict, the battle between who we truly are and who we think we must become in order to be loved. The danger lies in how unconscious this adaptation process is. Most of us are unaware of how, little by little, we sacrifice our authenticity at the altar of approval. We become used to measuring our worth through the eyes of others, seeking validation externally instead of cultivating a sense of inner value. The anxiety we feel at the thought of being rejected is not a weakness. It is the echo of a much deeper wound, the feeling of not being enough, simply as we are. This fear is deeply embedded in the structure of our psyche. It is reinforced during adolescence, when the need to belong to a group intensifies. It continues to affect us into adulthood, shaping our decisions, our relationships, and our sense of self-worth. When we remain unaware of this pattern, we stay trapped in a cycle, constantly chasing the approval of others without realizing that the only validation that truly matters is our own. To break free from this cycle, we must first recognize that external validation is fleeting. It comes and goes. But the connection with our own being, our true self, is the only source of real and lasting value. Seeking approval is often an unconscious attempt to fill an internal void with something from the outside, a void that originates from the sense of inadequacy many of us have carried since childhood. From an early age, we are taught that our worth depends on how others see us. We learn that good grades, our parents' praise, and our friends' approval determine our value. We grow up believing that we need to meet expectations in order to be lovable. Without realizing it, we fall into the trap of thinking that if we collect enough validation, we'll finally feel complete. But no amount of external approval can fill the emptiness that comes from denying who we truly are. As long as we look outside for affirmation, we'll remain vulnerable, chained to others' opinions, moods, and standards. Our self-worth will rise and fall based on the unpredictable waves of social validation. The real transformation begins when we dare to look inward, when we stop asking the world for permission to be ourselves, when we reclaim our power by saying, "I am enough," not because others say I am, but because I choose to believe it. Healing from the fear of rejection doesn't mean we will never feel vulnerable again. It means we recognize that vulnerability is not a flaw, but a gateway to authenticity. To live authentically is to risk not being understood, to risk not being liked, and even to risk being alone. But it is also the path to genuine connection, the kind of connection that can only happen when we show up without masks, without pretenses, the kind of connection that nourishes the soul instead of feeding the ego. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to become someone else to deserve love. You are not broken for wanting acceptance, but you are not free until you realize that your value is not up for debate. So today, give yourself the gift of self-recognition. Let go of the exhausting need to be approved by everyone else. Embrace the parts of you that you've hidden out of fear. Be kind to the younger version of yourself that first learned to silence their voice. And remember, true freedom is not found in being accepted by others, but in accepting yourself completely. But this is nothing more than a mirage, an illusion that traps us in a cycle of permanent dissatisfaction. The approval of others, though it may feel validating in the moment, is by its very nature unstable and fleeting. What is praised today might be criticized tomorrow. What is admired this week might be forgotten the next. Society's values are in constant flux, shifting with trends, culture, and time. The collective psyche moves in cycles of admiration and condemnation, and no one, no matter how powerful, talented, or wise, is immune to this tide. History is filled with examples. Visionaries, artists, thinkers, and leaders who were once celebrated have later been ridiculed or rejected. Their self-worth, if anchored solely in public opinion, was tossed about like a ship without a rudder, drifting without direction. And that is the trap. When our sense of self is built upon external validation, we lose our internal compass. We become like puppets dancing for the applause of others, forgetting who we truly are beneath the performance. Beyond this, the need for validation places us in an incredibly vulnerable position. It makes us dependent, constantly chasing approval and modifying our behavior to fit into molds that we believe will earn us acceptance. We smile when we don't feel like smiling. We agree when we want to disagree. We act in ways that are not true to ourselves. Slowly, we disconnect from our authentic identity, burying our truth beneath a facade. We stop being who we are and become slaves to the image we think others want to see. This pursuit of approval becomes an invisible prison, a mental and emotional confinement that very few manage to escape. But here's the deeper truth. The real problem isn't that others reject us, it's that we reject ourselves. Most people who desperately seek to be accepted by others are doing so because deep down, they haven't accepted themselves. They don't believe they're enough. They don't feel worthy unless someone else tells them so. And so, the gaze of others only becomes painful when our inner gaze is already filled with judgment and criticism. If we have not yet learned to value ourselves, we will forever depend on others to do it for us. That's why the real question we must ask ourselves is not, why don't they accept me? But rather, why don't I accept myself? External validation will never fill the void created by internal self-rejection. The only way to break free from this cycle is by turning inward. We must face our insecurities head-on and learn to give ourselves the love, approval, and recognition we have always sought from others. The day you stop needing validation from the outside world is the day you will truly feel free, because from that moment on, your worth will no longer be tied to the ever-changing opinions of others, but rooted in the unshakable connection you've built with your true self. And in this journey inward, we eventually come face to face with a powerful concept, the shadow. To truly accept ourselves, we must also be willing to embrace the parts of us we've been taught to fear or hide. In Jungian psychology, the shadow represents all the aspects of our personality that we have repressed or denied, often because we believed they were unacceptable. From a young age, we are taught, sometimes subtly, sometimes harshly, what is good behavior and what is not. Anger, jealousy, sadness, defiance, or even an innocent desire for attention may have been criticized, punished, or ignored. So we learn to suppress these feelings. We push them into the dark corners of our unconscious mind. But what we repress doesn't disappear. It doesn't dissolve. It waits in silence, surfacing in unexpected ways, in our irrational reactions, in our fears, and in our judgments of others. One of the most powerful ways the shadow shows itself is through projection. When we reject certain traits in ourselves, we begin to see them exaggerated in those around us. We might call someone selfish, when in truth, we haven't acknowledged our own repressed selfishness. We might be irritated by someone's insecurity because it reflects a deep insecurity we haven't yet faced in ourselves. This is why rejection hurts so much. It's not just about what someone else says or does. It's that their rejection often echoes something we already believe about ourselves. When someone tells us we're not good enough, and that statement strikes a nerve, it's because somewhere within, we've already accepted that painful belief. And that is the power of the shadow. Until we recognize and integrate it, it will continue to manifest in our fears, in our relationships, and in how we see the world. To truly grow, to evolve, we must stop running from the shadow and instead walk toward it. We must learn to accept not only the light within us, but also the darkness. Because only when we embrace the whole of who we are, our strengths and flaws, our virtues and vices, can we begin to experience real freedom, inner peace, and self-acceptance. To eliminate the fear of rejection, we must embark on a deep and transformative journey of shadow integration. This isn't just about confronting our fears on the surface. It's about diving into the depths of who we are, facing the aspects of ourselves that we've long hidden or denied. It requires us to stop running from our own imperfections and instead begin to welcome them as essential parts of our wholeness. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean surrendering to our darkest impulses or giving in to destructive behavior. It means acknowledging that we are human beings, complex, multifaceted, and filled with both light and darkness. We are a blend of virtues and flaws, strengths and weaknesses. And the moment we stop judging ourselves for being imperfect, something profound shifts within us. It's about accepting our vulnerability, our anger, our insecurities, our hidden desires, and all those emotional wounds we've tried to ignore or suppress. Instead of labeling them as bad or undesirable, we begin to understand them as parts of our experience that have shaped us. We see them not as enemies, but as teachers. When we reach this level of radical self-acceptance, our perception of the world changes. Suddenly, we're no longer paralyzed by the opinions of others. We no longer live in fear of being judged or misunderstood, because we've already embraced ourselves, fully and completely. Rejection, which once felt like a deep and personal wound, becomes nothing more than an external opinion, one that has no real power over our sense of self-worth. We stop hiding, we stop pretending, and most importantly, we stop abandoning ourselves just to be accepted by others. Accepting our shadow is one of the most courageous acts we can undertake. It's not easy. It's raw, uncomfortable, and often painful. But through that pain, we gain freedom. We begin to show up as our true selves, unfiltered and unapologetic. We stop seeking validation because we've already given it to ourselves. We become emotionally self-sufficient, and in that authenticity, we discover true inner peace. This is where individuation begins, The path to emotional independence isn't a superficial fix or a quick motivational pep talk. It is the deep and ongoing process of individuation, what Carl Jung described as the journey toward the total realization of the self. It's not just about growing up or becoming more mature. It's about uncovering who we truly are beneath the layers of conditioning, expectations, and roles we've adopted. Individuation calls us to shed the identities that were imposed on us by our families, by society, by culture, and to discover the identity that arises from within. It's about asking ourselves, who am I when I am no longer trying to please others? What do I truly believe beyond the ideas that were handed to me? What do I desire when I silence the voices telling me what I should want? Since childhood, we are immersed in a world of collective influence. We seek approval from our parents, our teachers, our peers, and eventually from society as a whole. We're taught that fitting in is synonymous with safety, and that standing out is a risk. To belong, we learn to suppress parts of ourselves. We mold ourselves into acceptable versions of what the world wants to see, and little by little, we lose touch with our authenticity. But this belonging comes at a cost. We trade our individuality for approval. We internalize beliefs and values that may not align with who we really are, simply to avoid being excluded. We become echoes of the collective, rather than the unique beings we were born to be. The process of individuation invites us to break that dependency. It asks us to turn inward and discover the essence of who we are, independent of the crowd. It urges us to live in alignment with our own truth, regardless of how others might respond. And that's not an easy path. It demands immense courage. To be yourself in a world that constantly tries to make you someone else is a radical act. It means being willing to be misunderstood, rejected, or even isolated at times. It means standing in your truth, even when no one claps for you. Not everyone will like you. Not everyone will get you. But that's the price of authenticity. And it's a price worth paying. Because the peace that comes from being real is unlike anything else. When we finally understand that we don't need to belong everywhere to feel worthy, we begin to breathe more freely. We stop living for acceptance. We stop compromising our integrity just to fit in. We realize that the value of a person doesn't lie in their ability to be accepted, but in their ability to stay connected to who they truly are. When you stop measuring your worth by external validation, you become free. You stop begging for affection or approval because you've finally learned to love yourself. And when you love yourself, rejection loses its power over you. The only acceptance that truly matters is your own. To individuate is not to rebel against the world or isolate yourself in some illusion of superiority. It is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of awareness. It is the conscious decision to live in alignment with your essence, no matter how the world reacts. It is choosing presence over performance, truth over conformity. And from that place of authenticity, life begins to make sense in a new way. You feel grounded, clear, whole. You discover meaning, not from chasing approval, but from living as your truest self. So choose the path of differentiation, not out of pride, not out of ego, but because only by being loyal to who you are can you experience the fullness of life. Those who dare to walk this path find that they were never truly alone. The greatest ally they ever needed was already within, their integrated, awakened, and conscious self. And the journey towards self-worth, without the need for external validation, begins with a single, transformative shift, changing how you see yourself. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about breaking free from the mental chains that have blinded you to your own value. You are not broken. You are not too much or not enough. You are whole, even with your scars. You are worthy, not because others say so, but because you are. And when you finally see yourself with that clarity, you no longer fear rejection, because you finally come home to yourself. Observe yourself without judgment. Look at your story, your fears, your insecurities, with compassion. You are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are the sum of everything you've lived through. Every part of you, even those you've been taught to see as weak, shameful, or flawed, forms an essential piece of your humanity. Do not reject yourself. True self-love doesn't come from perfection. It comes from unconditional acceptance. Recognize your shadow. Accepting that you are not perfect is the first step toward true freedom. Wholeness doesn't come from eliminating your so-called flaws. It comes from integrating them into your identity. When you acknowledge your inner contradictions without trying to hide or deny them, you become more complete, more grounded, and more real. Free yourself from the weight of other people's opinions, their criticisms, their rejections. They hold no power unless you give it to them. Remember, most of the time, what others say about you is simply a projection of their own fears and wounds. Do not base your worth on external judgments. Real confidence doesn't come from the outside. It's born from within. Cultivate your inner world. Your value doesn't depend on how much you're liked or how many people approve of you. It lies in the depth of your relationship with yourself. Create space for introspection, whether it's through meditation, journaling, creating art, or anything that lets you express your inner truth. These practices aren't just hobbies. They're portals to self-discovery. Embrace solitude. Solitude is not a punishment. It's an opportunity. In solitude, you can finally hear your own voice. You can ask yourself what you truly want, without noise, without expectations, and you can begin to build emotional independence, not because you've shut the world out, but because you've learned to stand strong on your own. Don't fear being alone, because it is in those quiet moments when the outside world fades that your true self begins to speak. When you stop needing others to approve of you, you become truly free. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've finally learned how to give yourself the love and validation you've been seeking everywhere else. Life is a journey toward individuation, a return to your authentic self. Dare to walk that path. Dare to be rejected. Dare to be misunderstood. Dare to be you. And if this message resonated with your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs to hear these words today. There's someone out there who might be battling the same doubts, the same fears, and your simple act of sharing could be the light they've been searching for. Together, let's keep creating a space where truth, healing, and authenticity are not only welcomed, but celebrated.